All right, everybody, welcome back to another little market recap here. Just wanted to provide a quick update on what we saw the last 2 days so far in the market, right? What I'm going to be watching over the next few days, and sort of my thought process going into the end of the week, right? So the first thing we're going to look at, as always, we're going to start with ES, the S&P 500. Which was a little bit disappointing for bulls today. Since the last market update, we actually had a really solid Monday, opened up strong, mostly on the back of tech, and we made a decent push up. We didn't really do anything to change the status quo, right? Meaning we didn't break back up to new all-time highs or anything, but we did well. We had a pretty solid day on Monday, and then we sold off a little bit into the end of the day. You can see that on the hourly chart there. We sold off a little bit into the end of the day, but nothing substantial, right? And then today the market opens up. We gap down a little bit, right? So we down from the previous night, and then we have sort of a bullish intraday, but then we fade towards the end of the day, and then really start to sell 20, 30 points to the downside into the close, right? So not the prettiest close back-to-back days in a row. Today was definitely a little bit more selling than yesterday saw, though. That's for sure, and especially into the end of the day. And really where this came from was the Russell, right? The IWM, which is the small cap index. And so what happened to the Russell here was kind of what I described with the ES and the NASDAQ, what they had potential to do in the last market update video. And really the reality of that is that we didn't have we didn't have much support to trade into, right? We were really, and all my levels are screwed up here, but really what you can see, oh, that's not right. Really, what you can see, we had room down without much to stop us, right? I need to clean up I don't know where my right drawing is, but nonetheless, right, you can see here, we didn't have much. We moved up really fast, and so we didn't have pullback areas and higher lows to hold. So the Russell really puked up a lot of its recent run today, right? And so the Russell is not looking great. The ES had a mixed, I would say, has a mixed week so far, right? So we go back to the ES. The main thing that brought it down today was the Russell, right? That was the index that contributed and brought the the S&P 500 down today. So mediocre first few days, right? Good Monday, not a great Tuesday for the S&P so far. And really where that came from, we had a great Monday on the NASDAQ. That one was a gap and go on Monday where it was a trend day, right? So all you had to do was buy at the open and then hold and sell a little bit, a couple hours into the day. That's what I did. And it was a great Monday, right? But then again, today, Tuesday, we don't really break over and actually accomplish anything, right? And then at the end of the day, we see some sell side, and we do actually end up closing red on the day, right? So not ideal. None of these things are ideal for bulls. None of them are inherently bearish. Nothing that's like super damning to any of their charts yet, but this is not a look we want, right? If you go ahead and you pull up the daily chart, it actually is incorrect due to the contract change on the NASDAQ futures. But if you look at the QQQ, which is the ETF of the futures, you look at the QQQ charts, again, we still haven't made a higher high, right? And I was actually wrong about this in my last video because I was using the NASDAQ futures chart. And then I went back and I realized, okay, my gosh, this is not accurate, right? We haven't made a higher high here. So the Qs are still technically in a downtrend on the daily time frame, right? While we may have set a higher low there, it hasn't really positioned itself much, right? We don't have a retest there. We don't have anything to sort of confirm. And we still have a gap up, right? So the NASDAQ essentially, it didn't reverse the move that it made today, because reversing it would have been following through with this gap, right? But the attempt to go higher, which is key, because that means that we did attempt to break yesterday's range, and then failure to actually sustain above is not a great look, right? This is not a great look so far. So really what I'm going to be on the lookout for here in the coming days is is the Nasdaq headed to fill that gap? Right. Let's get back to the futures chart so we can break down hourly levels. Um, we don't have much or anything really in the way of stopping us from tagging a level from Friday's close around 20. Yeah, what is that? 74. Yeah, so we'll call it 874. Right, so that would be if we do get continued sell side, that would be the target, right? Which is only about 125, or no, it's about 175 points away. But that's not a massive and damning move, right? That fills the gap. If we hold there, that actually sets up as another nice higher low. But really, I think from a broader term, you have to ask yourself the question: okay, are we coming back for this gap down here, 12,500s? And ultimately, I think coming back for this swing low is not off the table, right? If the Nasdaq continues to fail at breaking up to a higher high on the daily time frame, which gets lower as more time goes on, right? We consistently the higher high spots are getting lower as time goes on, and we're still failing to break above and set that higher high. If we see this to continue for a while, I don't want to rule out the possibility of us coming back and sweeping out this swing low, right? Which is a scary thought because that was some harsh selling on a lot of the names that we trade quite frequently. But again, something to me always felt fishy about this, right? I like hourly bottoms that have a long tail at the end, right? Something, and again, there's nothing wrong with this being a reversal because that is an hourly buy. We engulf the previous candle, right? And then the next one we get over the open, right? So this is a buy setup and it's a reversal setup, and I'm not taking anything away from it, but it just felt more. This was a Friday, if I remember correctly. It just felt more mechanical than anything, right? And I wish that we had swept that low, and I wonder if that is going to ultimately be what happens. Right now, we're a long way away from there. Um, Losing 750 is something we got to do. I'll add the actual level right now. We got to lose 780s, we got to lose 772s, but below that, we have room to sell. That's for sure. We have room to sell, and it would not surprise me if ultimately this did lead us to a bit of a breakdown. Right? These are my actual levels here. Oh, there we go. Yeah, sorry. No, this is the chart with my levels all done. So we do have room, right? We do have room to the downside potential. The other index that we want to take a look at is the Dow Jones, which has been by far the strongest recently. And to me, while this doesn't look great, it kind of looks like an hourly bear flag that just broke down. And I could see the Dow trading a bit lower, coming back and testing like 32,000 clean. So another few hundred points, maybe even this 31.6 level that I've had left up for a while. Um, um, I think that the Dow could pull back, but it's likely to. The Dow's pullbacks have felt very controlled, right? Like even today, we spent most of the day up high, and then just at the end of the day, we broke down and we sold off hard. Don't get me wrong, but it wasn't. It was nothing like the. Let me unlink these charts and show you guys, guys and gals, compared to the RTY, right? The RTY was selling with no buyers, no bounce, right? This was vicious. This was harsh selling, right? This seems more like end of day liquidation where it's following the other indexes as all indexes sell off, right? The Russell was selling off by itself while the other indexes were holding up. That's a bearish sign for the Russell and a bullish sign for the Dow, right? So I still think the Dow can come back and test 3,200-ish. That would be, I believe that was a flat top resistance area on the daily. Yeah, so we had some trouble here at 31,800s, 3,200s. I could definitely see us continuing down and then putting in a hammer maybe Thursday of this week, or maybe even tomorrow. We'll trade lower and then we'll get a hammer back up. I think that's what I would be looking for in the Dow and in Dow names, which have been weak over the last few days. That would include BA. Gosh, some of my clean drawing sets are never actually clean. That would include BA, which it broke down from a consolidation period. It looks like it might be headed to maybe fill some gaps. But I wouldn't be surprised to see this selling in the Dow reverse pretty quickly, right? So the names that come to mind are Boeing. Disney has seen a little bit of sell side. Again, my charts get messy sometimes. Disney has now officially filled a gap and closed down there and has seen some sell side, right? But reversals in these down names sooner rather than later wouldn't surprise me, because I do think we'll see a sustained run in the Dow. I'm not a fundamental trader, but from my understanding, part of the reason that Dow names have been doing well is because of policies that President Biden has implemented. Um, more construction, I don't, more industrial shit. I don't know. I don't pretend to understand the fundamentals, but what I do know is that Dow names have been really strong, and the chart tells us that, right? So after a good solid pullback, don't be hesitant to buy these and expect strong reversals from them, right? Uh, Especially when the Dow has been the most recent new all-time highs, right? So it's been showing us that relative strength consistently, right? So overall, that is my market update. A couple of individual names that I wanted to point out. One is Palo Alto Networks. I added some shares the other day on this, although I'm wondering if shares were the right move. I'm thinking it might come lower. But I have a weekly call. I have a couple weekly call contracts to see if we can get a gap up tomorrow, but they're sized for zero. Held them through some pain today, but this yesterday was looking like a great chart. We didn't get any nearly through the follow through that we wanted today, but we closed green when the indexes closed red, right? So there was some relative strength here in this name today, especially when other names were looking relatively weak. So if we can clear this high, right, especially I think if we can clear, today's high, 327, 328, and get back into the 330 range, we have the potential to make a quick move up to 350, 360, right? So if on an options trade, especially if we can do that this week, would be an amazing move to catch, right? So with options, as long as you size your positions correctly, as long as you manage your risk in terms of your position size, using short-term weekly options can definitely provide you with some really good risk reward opportunities, right? So for me here, my max risk is my entire position size, and if the play hits, I have 330. I think it's 335 calls. If the play hits and 350 comes, the return will be 400% plus, right? So I still have 4-to-1 risk to reward ratio. Um, so that is one name that I'm watching. If you do take a trade in Palo Alto Networks in short-term options, make sure you size it appropriately. As a matter of fact, make sure you size all of your positions appropriately. I think that's just something I'm going to harp on and be a dick about. So Palo Alto Networks was one. And this one is one that I like if we have a strong NASDAQ and a strong ES tomorrow, right? If we get strength back in the market, I like taking a name that showed me relative strength today and breaking out and looking for that quick move towards the 350 area, right? So another one, again, we talked about SQ a bit, and we talked about SQ for this pattern, right? This inverse head and shoulders, which you can see it has held so far, right? So far it has held. But there's something in trading that you should know, and this is a really big principle of mine that I base my trades off of, right? It's the same principle that's applied in a few different ways, right? Which is if you knock enough times at the door, someone's going to answer, right? And what that means to me is if you test resistance or support enough, it's going to break, right? And this area has been holding on SQ, the 225, 223, 222 area. It's been holding, but that's about all it's been doing, right? And so if you knock enough times, if you test this area enough times, it's going to snap, it's going to break, and we don't have much support until the 200 areas, right? The way this daily candle happened, we don't have much in terms of levels to look to buy off. So a move to 210, which would be a fantastic options trade, could come really, really fast. That being said, I'm not short Square, and I would never be shorted overnight right now, because the potential for a gap and go over 230 would send this back to 250 or to at least 240 really quickly, right? So there's still the same type of thing that we talked about on Sunday with this potential for an up or down move on Square. And so I'm looking for both, right? Whichever one presents itself first, that's what I'm going to be looking for. That's what I'm going to be looking for to capitalize on, right? So With that being said, yeah, I mean, if you just look, if you have a big red trend bar, and then you have the subsequent daily candles consolidating at the lows of that big red trend bar, from a technical analysis perspective, when you're using individual bars in their relation to previous bars, that not only is it a bear flag pattern, um, but it also just sends the message that it's consolidating at the lows to then ultimately go lower. Right now, if this lasts for another week and a half, then it'll look more like shop, which looks more like basing. Right, it's still a bear flag, but it looks more like it's basing out to then eventually pop over and break its bear flag form. Square, on the other hand, looks like at any day, if we sell through these lows, we'll snap down pretty quickly. So Square is a top short watch if the market is weak. If the market is strong, Palo Alto Networks is on long watch. And then we covered my thoughts on the Dow, the ES, the NASDAQ. The Russell, I think, might pull it back a little bit more, but I ultimately think this area holds on the Russell. So I would be looking for support to come pretty soon in the Russell and to see that start to get rotated into. It took quite a fall today. So if the overall trend in the all four indices is to remain up, we need the Russell to hold this general area, and we need the NASDAQ to break to a higher high, right? Those are the two key things that I'm looking for. And whether or not those happen will dictate what happens to the S&P in the short term, all right? So with that being said, happy Tuesday, everybody. I know I did this video late Eastern time, so you all on the East Coast might not see it till tomorrow morning, but we'll take it from there and make some money tomorrow. Cheers, team.